I glanced out at the propeller on the wing of the 40-seater ATR-72 plane. Beneath us, bathed in sea and sunshine, lay a sandy-coloured island. No visible vegetation, only yellowish-white chalk. Kalymnos. The captain warned us we might be in for a rough landing. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my seat. Ever since I was a child, I have known I was going to die in a fall. Or, to be more precise, that I was going to fall from the sky into the sea and drown there. I can even recall the day on which this certainty came to me. My father was one of the assistant directors in the family firm of which his older brother, Uncle Hector, was head. We children loved Uncle Hector because he always brought presents when he came to see us and let us ride in his car, the only Rolls-Royce cabriolet in all Athens. My father usually returned from work after I had gone to bed, but this particular evening he was early. He looked worn out, and after tea he had a long telephone conversation with my grandfather in his study. I could hear that he was very angry. When I went to bed, he sat on the edge of it, and I asked him to tell me a story. He thought about it for a bit, then he told the tale of Icarus and his father. They lived in Athens, but they were on the island of Crete when his father, a wealthy and celebrated craftsman, made a pair of wings from feathers and wax with which he was able to fly through the sky. People were mightily impressed by this, and the father and his whole family were everywhere regarded with great respect. When the father gave the wings to Icarus, he urged his son to do exactly as he had done, and follow exactly the same route, and everything would be all right. But Icarus wanted to fly to new places, and to fly even higher than his father. And once he was airborne, intoxicated at finding himself so high above the ground as well as by the onlookers, he forgot that it wasn't because of his supernatural ability to fly, but because of the wings his father had given him. In his overweening self-confidence he flew higher than his father and came too close to the sun, and the sun melted the wax that held the wings in place. And with that Icarus fell into the sea, where he drowned. As I was growing up, it always seemed to me that my father's lightly adapted version of the Icarus myth was intended as an early warning to his oldest son. Hector was childless, and it was presumed that I would succeed him when the time came. Not until I was grown up did I learn that at around that time the firm had almost gone bankrupt as a result of Hector's reckless gambling on the price of gold, that my grandfather had fired him, but for the sake of appearances allowed him to keep his title and office. In practice, it was my father who ran the firm thereafter. I never found out whether the bedtime story he told me that evening referred to me or to Uncle Hector, but it must have made a deep impression on me, because ever since I have had nightmares that involve falling and drowning. Actually, on some nights, the dream seems like something warm and pleasant, a sleep in which everything painful ceases to exist. Who says you can't dream of dying? The plane shook, and I heard gasps from the other passengers as we sank through so-called air pockets. For a moment or two I felt something like weightlessness, and that my hour had come. But it hadn't, of course. The Greek flag was blowing straight out from the flagpole by the little terminal building as we left the plane. As I passed the cockpit, I heard the pilot say to the stewardess that the airport had just closed and that it was unlikely they would be able to return to Athens. I followed the queue of passengers into the terminal building. A man wearing a blue police uniform stood with arms folded in front of the luggage belt and studied us. As I headed towards him, he gave me a quizzical look, and I nodded my confirmation. "George Kostopoulos," he said, holding out a large hand, the back of it covered with long black hairs. His grip was firm, but not exaggeratedly so, as is sometimes the case when provincial colleagues feel they're in competition with the capital. "Thank you for coming at such short notice, Inspector Bali." "Call me Nikos," I said. "Sorry I didn't recognize you, but there aren't many pictures of you, and I thought you were, older." I had inherited, probably from my mother's side, the kind of looks that don't age particularly with the years. My hair was grey and the curls gone, and I had maintained a fighting weight of 75 kilos, though nowadays less of it was muscle. "You don't think 59 is old enough?" "Well, goodness me, yes, of course." He spoke in a voice that I was guessing was a little deeper than his natural register, and smiled wryly beneath a moustache of the type men in Athens had shaved off some 20 years earlier. But the eyes were mild, and I knew I wouldn't be getting any trouble from George Costopoulos.